Hi, I'm Major Scores, and welcome to another episode of a grand campaign in the Italian region. I'm going to be taking over the nation of Florence from the onset, and Florence was one of my more favorite nations in EU4. Just the ability to play a little bit taller, form Italy, form Tuscany. Right, there was a lot of flavor you can do from a trading perspective. First campaigns I did in Asia and then in Ireland. So I wanted to get it more into the heart of the HRE, play as a republic also, right? Most of my first two were more monarchies, so just kind of got a flavor of to what that is. Um, in addition, this is using the old patch, the 1.07, or the current patch, I should say. I know that there's a lot of creators that had early access to the 1.08 patch that's going to be coming out, I think, next week. Uh, the meta on that one, from everything I've been watching, is on moving to decentralized versus centralized, and is the meta in the current patch. So I will still continue on with the centralized meta for this campaign, just because it makes more sense, right? So I kind of revoke that privilege. That increases decentralization from the nobility from the jump. So it's really more about just increasing my crown lands, helping out the burghers. These are rich lands in the Tuscany region. A lot of cities already there. A lot of the towns already have temples and things like that. So we, get into the campaign, right? So starting it here in Florence, I disabled things like the missions. I kept it at a historical just because, in case I wanted to do something different in the campaign, or just if another country gets stronger, they can have the option to create a unique nation and a historical nation, and just kind of sees it go a little bit more wild. But mine is going to be more linear, right? It's forming Tuscany in this first 33 years of this first video, and then with the ultimate goal of with the formation of Italy long term, right? So it's going to be more of a playing tall, aggressive at the start, and then start to build up the nation with the strength that I have as I increase control, build bridges, or pound lock canals where possible. They are a little bit closer to where all of the institutions spawn. Unfortunately, things like Renaissance don't spawn in Florence, which is funny enough, where most of the institutions would have spawned historically in my area, but it actually spawned in Milan and slowly trickled down into my country. So we'll get into it. I think it's a goal campaign where you can't be too aggressive with like non-CB wars, just because you get a lot of antagonism. Even the wars that I will declare here, like coalitions, form immediately after taking like 3 provinces. So you have to be strategic on when you kind of go to war. And that's why I use like the parliament actions at the moment, right? The only options that I have for building up the spy networks are, adding them to my faction or whatever, right? And I'd rather just have the land directly controlled by me and not deal with some of those faction mechanics. There is a CB that happens with Verona early on in the campaign, but unfortunately, it's they in multiple playthroughs I've just not able to have been successful there. So in this first campaign, I created a rival in Pisa, and that was my first war target with that first parliament action after the 2 years or so. They did co-belligerate a couple of nations, and I'll separate piece them all out. So just kind of expansion in the region, getting more of the provinces in the Tuscany region. I need 18 in the region just to form Tuscany. So it's not difficult, but it is just kind of slow. And every time you kind of declare war, you kind of anger everybody around you. But the coalition wars are really not an issue. I'm assuming that that's eventually going to be nerfed a little bit, right? You can kind of wipe them out pretty quickly, whereas the coalitions in EU4, you needed to get to like well over 50% war score just to like white piece them, right? So they have in these instances, there you can see my peace deal that I did with Pisa. So they'll quickly start to join a coalition against me. the first age of Renaissance just spawned, I go with the admin. I think the proximity costs and the bonuses that are in there are the most advantageous. And then you'll see almost immediately I get declared on from a war perspective. So another the faction kind of quickly joined and quickly declared on me. But like I said, it's not hard. You just raise your troops. Cortana is the leader, so I immediately turn my attention towards them, siege down their lands, and ideally wipe out right there. As you can see, 100% wiped out their stack of armies. And once you kind of siege them down and wipe them out, they're more than willing to get out of the war. So I'm gladly take that and just kind of push it down. Fate of Prado, immediately at the start, I improved my relations with Naples, Venice, and the Papal States. And Fate of Prado is an event that triggers when you improve relations enough with Naples, where you can actually buy the Prado province for 142.5 ducats. Well worth it in my opinion, right? So I bought that, had to go into a little bit of debt, immediately turned my attention to Siena on a war. The Papal States had declared on Siena, so I wanted to grab land from Siena before they did, as they were already sieging down their capital, and Siena had no man already. So I was able to siege on 2 of their province, and then a couple on Lucca, without sieging Lucca's capital, and took the land. I was hoping that it was going to block the Papal States from expansion, but they still were able to take that clay, so it's a future war. And then you can see immediately the coalition forms again after taking that land. Same process, right? Just siege down some of the land. I am more powerful. As you see, I got outnumbered in that war, but I was able to beat them despite the numbers advantage. So now I'm sieging down the war leader, Volterra or Cortana, sieging down what I can. They're 49%, minus 49% progress. I'm not in danger of losing that fort. So now just scattering around and making sure that I kind of, and you can see I'm about to lose that war. And I got the war reps and ducats just to get out of this war as soon as possible and kind of kick the can down the road, right? You're getting what you can and getting out of the war as soon as possible, so that the coalition, as you can see, disbands rather quickly. So it's you do that, and then you skip ahead, and then I declare back on Volterra or Volterra. I apologize in advance for any butchering of the names in the Italian region. But I needed more land in the Tuscany region, area of opportunity. They were one province, but they did have other nations in that region. So I was able to get 2 of the provinces in the Tuscany region in this war. So it was worthwhile to use that parliament action. As we can see, we're now in the 1350s. A number of nations in there, but I have the numbers advantage. It's really not a threat. And then I'm just kind of getting war reps and dollars from all of the co-belligerents into the war, or they weren't co-belligerent, they were just called in as an ally. So I wasn't looking to take the Lucca province there, which has a castle. And then I'm not exactly sure about Bologna and Pavia were able to join the war. Pavia, I think, had a vassal that was also called in. And they quickly kind of wiped my stack there on the siege in Pisa, so resetted that. But I was able to quickly wipe Peace Bologna by just kind of sitting on their fort and the rest of their land and getting war reps and dollars, and then did the same with Pavia to get them quickly out of the war, which enabled me to just turn my attention back to Lucca, right? I wanted to kind of siege them down just because Lucca calls in much stronger allies if I want to get that one province. So I'm just taking the 2 provinces here along with the other one in the, I think, the Mantua region that I took into this particular war, which would give me enough provinces at the conclusion. As you can see right there, I got actually an alliance with Papal States in the middle of this war. But yeah, at the conclusion of this war, I should be able to then form Tuscany, which was, the initial goal coming into this campaign. And as you can see here, able to form them. I have enough of the required provinces in the region. I go toward that gray color, and getting that alliance with the Papal States was pretty timely, as they are called in as a ally in my war here, which they have a lot more troops. But again, I just use that same strategy to get out of the coalition war as quickly as possible, just because they have the numbers advantage. So take the war leaders' land first, or sit on their capital, win a couple battles here on some of their smaller stacks, siege down some of the non-fort lands that I can, and then you can see that 9,000 stack is coming. So I buy peace, or take a little bit of cash. I thought this was kind of funny. The 100 Years' War ends in 1359, so what is that, 22 years, whereas the Irish campaign, they didn't finish the 100 Years' War until the mid-1600s, so the 300-year war in that previous campaign, if you haven't seen my Ireland campaign. So this is the last war of the campaign. I wanted to kind of consolidate this region, and called in for that Volterra land there, just to kind of get that last piece of land. And then I noticed that Macerata had 2 vassals, so if I took their 2 provinces, I think the longest part of this war was just figuring out which is Macerata and which was their vassals. I didn't want to take any land that I didn't, but if you take all of their land, then their vassals become your vassals. So I was able to take 3 provinces in this war and pick up 2 vassals for free, which I don't think counts as an antagonism. I could be wrong, but it allowed me to kind of grow my power base, get a couple of vassals who I was able to feed the Marcetta land after this war to them, so that they can grow a little bit and integrate those a little bit easier, or have a little bit better control than I could. And then this gives me another fort down there, bordering on the Papal States, who's my current ally. There you go. I mean, I feel like in this campaign I've been in stability hell since the start. Another comet sighted, so it's been slow kind of trek, kind of getting my stability back, my Republican tradition. I feel like every event is either that or lose Republican tradition or lose stability. It's like pick your poison. Papal States calls me into a war here in the Italian region. I accepted, and then I didn't want to. I didn't really want them to take land, so I quickly tried to siege down everything to kind of block them from taking the land that they desired. And they white pieced, and I got a little bit of cash out, which I was able to get out of the rest of my debt. So I've kind of concentrated the region a little bit better, and I have at least a starting point to build my power block a little bit more as I start to play the tall campaign. So I'm still kind of building up my economy a little bit. I don't really have roads everywhere, so I'm starting to make a little bit more cash. The Papal States find themselves in a war here. I think they're an ally with Provence, so France and Napoli are at war with them, and they are definitely outnumbered from a manpower perspective, both Provence and the Papal States. I was hoping that they were going to release Siena at the conclusion of this war, but they ended up just canceling their alliance with me. So I might end up double-crossing them at the end of our peace treaty after they broke our alliance, and once I kind of get my next parliament, because the Papal States, I'm actually not allowed to even no-CB them because of the leader of the Catholic faith is the buffer, so unless I have a valid reason. So but you kind of see where I am. In the first portion of this video, right, I just kind of get a flavor of like how I can kind of quickly expand in the region, grow, become Tuscany, and at the end of the day, it's more about playing tall and seeing if I can kind of gain some allies. Right now I'm a little bit more exposed with Naples to my immediate south, but I am growing. You can see the province control that I have from the jump. Just have that one province that I have to build a road to, but I have at least a starting point on where I can take this campaign 33 years from the start, and institutions are all kind of spawning. I think Renaissance is the only one I have left at this point, and I'm able to start to build that block in the Italian region with the ultimate goal of the campaign to form Italy and take over and dominate the region and become that superpower. So please like and follow along and subscribe if the Florence to Tuscany to Italy campaign is of interest to you. And thank you again for watching.